of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the MSME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show on Game Changers, we're bringing you two conversations. First up with Zone Startups, and on the other side of a short break, we'll bring you a conversation with Skanray. We talk very often about funding for women-led businesses and women entrepreneurs. And tonight on the show, I'm bringing a conversation with Zone Startups that works very closely with women-funded businesses by providing them both mentors as well as connecting them with the right people, whether it comes to funding, etc. They do this work not just here in Tier 1s, but also pan-India. I asked them about some tips for women entrepreneurs who might be watching this interview. Take a listen. Ajay, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. I want to talk to you as someone who's very closely involved with women entrepreneurs in India, who's very closely involved with what is happening in terms of incubation, in terms of acceleration and such programs in Tier 3, Tier 4 cities and towns of India. Let's start by asking you to talk about Zone Startups.
Firstly, thanks for having me on the show. So just to give you a little bit of a background on who we are as Zone Startup. So as an entity, we are headquartered in Toronto, Canada, spun out of a university, Ryerson University. Zone Startups as an entity or as a brand does a couple of things: early stage technology accelerator and early stage investments. And the holding company is Ryerson Futures, under which we kind of go about international expansions. In India, we have been operating for the past 4 years. We do three things in India. We operate our own brand of accelerators under the Zone Startups India brand name. We operate corporate accelerators and corporate innovation programs. And the third piece is investing in early stage technology. So our flagship program going back 4 years was set up in partnership with the Bombay Stock Exchange Institute. First of its kind partnership anywhere in the world where a startup accelerator is co-located within a stock exchange. So it kind of becomes an attractive space for a lot of visitors coming to the stock exchange to kind of walk in. But more importantly, for startups which are housed at the exchange, it makes much easier for them to interact with the outer world, which is not only industry at large from in India, but also a lot of international visitors kind of coming in. And in the last 4 years, we have accelerated probably give or take 160 odd companies through different programs that we operate.
So multiple questions then from your answer. My first is, of course, I want to talk about the importance of accelerators and incubators like yourself to help women entrepreneurs. You have a specific program called Empower, which deals or works in ensuring that women entrepreneurs get access to funding. My first question is, how important or crucial is it for women entrepreneurs in a country like India, where the statistics with regards, say, funding for women entrepreneurs is abysmal? How important is it for accelerator startups targeted specifically at women entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I'll just take a step back. Incubators and accelerators, again, a stark difference in what each one does. Coming to the point of having, let us not just call it an accelerator, to even have an ecosystem for women entrepreneurs, I think the number is abysmal not only in India but globally. So if you looked at statistics, 6% is what it stands at in terms of number of women entrepreneurs per 100 male entrepreneurs or male counterparts that are funded. We go back 2 years before or at the time when we were conceptualizing Empower, we started with a hypothesis that funding or money is not the only deterrent for enabling women entrepreneurs to succeed. There are many more things which kind of become an integral part of creating building blocks of building enterprises or building ventures.
Like what?
So the hypothesis that we began with was, let us keep money aside. And let us look at mentorship, let us look at market access, let us look at the right kind of industry partnership, let us look at how do I find co-founders, how do I build a team? So a lot of other elements which are very important, necessary to build businesses, and it is absolutely gender agnostic. The other thing is socially and culturally, whether you're looking at it from an India perspective or globally, the avenues for male entrepreneurs to network is much more than women entrepreneurs. And especially if you look at the last year or 18 months, there are many more women, not only entrepreneurs, but from different walks of life, who have faced issues which they typically should not have in different walks of life. Now, that is something that holds back a lot of women from asking for things that might otherwise make them successful in one way or the other. Now, if you typically look at a lot of women entrepreneurs, they are building businesses and they want to be known for that, rather than someone having a soft corner that, hey, this is a woman, so let me just go ahead and help her. They don't want that to happen. On the contrary, on the other side, a lot of women entrepreneurs, when they even go to large events and large conferences, they don't really know that if I exchange card with someone, what's coming at me. And this has been documented, not that it has been happening only for the last couple of years, probably it has been happening for ages, but now women feel more safe and secure about talking about it. So a lot of these kind of issues which kind of further reduce the network that a lot of women entrepreneurs can have, because on the first hand, there are very few women who take a sabbatical from their career to bring up a family, and maybe because either A, they don't want to get into mainstream job, or B, because they have logged out on 5, 7, 10 years, they are unable to capitalize on the skill sets that they might have lost on, but they don't want to be sitting at home.
Sure.
They want to build something and want to be known for it for a future. And they find very few similar like-minded women who are doing the same. All of this put together makes it very necessary to actually have an ecosystem of like-minded women entrepreneurs who are building enterprises, who face more or less similar kind of challenges, but more importantly, to have a very solid peer ecosystem or a peer network.
Sure.
Someone you can lend on, someone who can understand it.
The Leaders of Tomorrow speaks to thousands of entrepreneurs every month, and one thing that we hear very often from our entrepreneurs who are not based in the metros is that it's very hard for them to get access to private equity, to VC, to even have that entry point as far as some of these funding options or venues are concerned. Your advice for our viewers of our show, if they're based outside of the metro, what should they be doing?
So, interesting question. So, just about 3 months back, we embarked on a partnership with the government of Kerala on Kerala Startup Mission, with Kerala Startup Mission, where this is the exact problem that we're trying to tackle. Increasingly, we are seeing a lot of state governments who have taken up this approach, where they have a lot of homegrown startups which may or may not be known outside of that particular city or that particular state, who might have their unit economics right. We keep hearing about unit economics, we keep hearing about how consumer internet companies are well funded, but still they don't have the unit economics. So if you go to a lot of these tier 2 and tier 3 cities, there are businesses which A, are solving a good problem, B, they have a solid team in place which is also generating revenues and has its unit economics in place. However, they are limited to that particular geography in which they are. Maybe if they get exposed to avenues outside of the region in which they are, they could become bigger businesses. One of the problems that we found with entrepreneurs when we were doing this program with the Kerala Startup Mission was that a lot of the entrepreneurs, because they had not seen opportunities in a Mumbai or a Bangalore, their appetite itself was less.
Okay.
By themselves, they were great businesses, but they, for example, did not have the kind of foresight, or they did not have the understanding that my business could probably be 10x from where I am. Because if I've been operating for last 2 or 3 years and I've reached a certain revenue, which might be say 2 lakhs a month, I'm happy because my neighbor is probably doing only 80,000. So relatively, I'm doing much better. But when they came to Mumbai, when they came to Bangalore, and they saw the opportunities not only with potential customers, but also similar entrepreneurs who are building similar businesses in the enterprise tech space, they realized that, wow, I'm missing out on something. So I think access has different connotations. It may not necessarily be limited just to a VC ecosystem. So we all get enamored by this whole concept of creating accelerators and pools of venture capital funds and so on. But they are not the be all and end all of it. I think there are many more things that entrepreneurs need to focus on. The first one is the problem I'm trying to solve. B, who is my customer and where is my customer? I think many of the folks, they kind of tend to miss out on it. We have a lot of state governments now creating big corpuses which are invested in creating these ecosystems, these incubators, these grand accelerators. But probably more than that, I think entrepreneurs in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, what they need is not a trip to Silicon Valley, but a trip to a Bangalore or to Mumbai to meet customers who could enable these businesses go up one notch. Probably then look at setting up operations a level up in Mumbai, in a Bangalore, in a Delhi, grow to a certain level, and then probably they can go outside and see what's in Singapore, what's in Israel, what's in Silicon Valley.
Sure.
So I think from a market access point of view, there's lots that can be done within India itself, and a lot of these startups in tier 2 and tier 3 cities need to be elevated to a level where they see the opportunities in the Bangalores and Mumbais of India.
Okay, since you were just talking about Kerala, my question to you is, several state governments are doing incubator programs for startups in each of their own states. Do you think those have been successful in encouraging local talent? Because clearly there's enough talent, there's enough innovation. It's just about finding that right access.
So from our context as zone startups, we look at different cities having different capabilities which are better cut out for having incubators or accelerators. Incubators are better cut out for cities which have a good mix of multidisciplinary academic institutions. Because at an incubator, you're typically looking at a team or individual having a great idea who might require the support of, say, a lab, say some faculty, PhD researchers, students to go from a hypothesis or an idea to maybe a minimum viable product. Whereas accelerators are better cut out for those cities which have a good mix of multiple things. At the core of it is the entrepreneurial ecosystem or network of entrepreneurs who have kind of been there, done that, made it, so that you have a reference point that if he or she can do it, I can do it as well. But around it, you need a good ecosystem of industry because you need to be close to where your customers are. Around that, you need to have a good mix of the investor ecosystem. So whether it is angel, VC, private equity, government funds, banks, and so on and so forth. Around that, you need to have another circle, which is a good mix of academic institutions to pick talent from. Because I can start with 2 people, when tomorrow I need 20 or 200, where do I go to?
Sure.
Around that, you need to have an ecosystem of enablers, the TIEs and the NASSCOMs of the world, who are kind of building platforms for entrepreneurs to come and meet and interact. And around that, you need to have a conducive government policy. So accelerators are better cut out only for cities which have all of this together at one place,
Sure.
whereas incubators are a good fit for cities which have a good mix of academic institutions. So by calling a physical space, I mean, for the land and building is probably the easiest thing that the government can kind of pull together. So creating a 10,000 square feet space and calling it an incubator without having a pool of whether it is mentors, whether it is customers, whether it is investors, it's not going to really take the ecosystem anywhere.
Sure.
So unless and until these things are fixed, I think investing heavily on land and building or capital assets, I think it's not going to really further the interest of the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
It's time for a break. Mysuru-based Skanray is our second game changer tonight. Coming up after a short break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and Scandreth is our game changer in focus tonight. Scandreth is a Mysuru-based medical equipment manufacturer and has since grown to be one of the largest here in India in its space. We caught up with the company to understand really what's fueling that growth and also perhaps what the outlook is for this industry. Take a listen. Thanks so much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Let's start by talking about, Skanray Technologies and how you really came about setting that company up.
I quit my job in GE in the headquarters, Milwaukee, and set up Skanray in 2007 in an incubation center with a 5-member team. And very quickly we grew from 5 to 15 and 15 to 40, 40 to 130. And in 2011 we established our factory and started commercial launch of the products. In 2013 we acquired Larsen & Toubro's medical business. 2014 we acquired Precall's ventilator business, Precall Healthcare, and a company in Italy called CEI manufacturing X-ray tubes. And 2014 we also set up our first offshore R&D center in Bologna, very close to our tubes factory. We also acquired a company in Brazil in 2013, but it took longer time for us to stabilize because of the complexities in certifications. And currently we are about 750 professionals. We have 8 facilities across the world, and we are one of the largest medical equipment manufacturers in the world and the top in the country, which designs, manufactures and exports medical equipments with global certifications.
As a healthcare company that looks at the manufacturing space here in India, what perhaps are some of your key challenges? If you can run us through that and help our viewers also understand how this market perhaps is one which is challenging, has its sets of ups and downs, and how you've navigated that.
I think medical equipment space has a very weak ecosystem in the country. When I started this, there was more of discouragement than an encouragement. Most of them said that you are fighting the large companies and you don't stand a chance to win against the biggies. There was also not enough skills to design and manufacture products here. I think the biggest challenge is development of skills and technology in-house. Money is not such a big issue, but from the debt side, banks are very careful lending money to startups without collaterals and security. The other big challenge I see is in supplier quality. Indian suppliers are of two categories: the automobile sector and communications, who have got large volumes, automated manufacturing, who are able to give you consistent quality.
Let's talk about the regulatory framework for medical equipment and device manufacturers like yourself. Are you happy with what you've seen?
Regulatory requirement for the country when we started was very weak. We could sell any machine without certification. Even 90% of the X-ray were not AERB approved. But over the years, AERB has done a good job in implementing the regulatory norms for radiation control. But ISI, the BIS standards are still very old. They are not implementable. There are committees sitting and revising the standards and trying to adopt IEC standards. But most of the tenders are asking for CEUL, FDA and international regulatories. One of the things I can share from my own experience is the need for ISI mark for X-ray. So the ISI standards are very old. It's like asking for a carburetor in a car. You know, now there is a fuel injection system and advanced electronic control. So if the regulatory bodies are looking for a carburetor, you will never be able to pass any car. I don't think we have to reinvent the regulatory standards. We can adopt what is relevant and make a quick standard to make sure that Indian manufacturers come up to the mark for global safety standards and performance standards.
To what role has R&D and innovation perhaps played a role in your own growth? If you can just run us through how crucial that is.
No, Skanray is basically R&D driven. I spent all my life in research and development, and all my colleagues who were the founding team are from the R&D background. So our view of R&D is a little bit skewed, which probably investors and business folks wouldn't subscribe to in the beginning. R&D is the core of whatever little we have achieved. We are now India's largest exporter of medical devices. We have grown from zero to a significant level where we have 8 manufacturing facilities across the globe, about 48 products that are certified globally. We export to about 80 countries, and we are OEMs to some of the best names in the industry. Now here, if I have to say, we have about 80 patents and quite a few trademark registrations. It is because of the homegrown R&D that Skanray has come to where it has reached. It's a huge investment. Initial days, I think 60–70% of the money that we raised went for R&D. Even today, we have about 20 to 30% of our investments being pumped into R&D. I don't think there is any way that R&D can play a second fiddle to business or operations in the near future.
So what's the advice then you would have to offer to MSMEs who are looking at fundraising, whether they're in the medical equipment and manufacturing space or otherwise when it comes to fundraising?
Medical business, medical education and food, I think, is a ever-growing sector. There are a lot of opportunities, and at the same time, it needs a lot of perseverance. It is an industry which has its own specialities, its own sensitivities. I would think that somebody with an exposure to the medical technology and the market is best suited to get into it. As a businessman, it is difficult to handle the R&D folks. Generally, in an industry of this type, if you don't have stable R&D resources, you will never be able to succeed. So if you can gather a good set of people who have the passion and who have the endurance more than passion, I don't think money is short for the sector. I don't think market is short. It is perseverance and having a team that can deliver.
What role do acquisitions play in the journey of a company, and what should one keep in mind when looking at acquisitions? Anything that you could help us with?
It's a multi-product, multi-modality company. There are certain products where we didn't have sufficient grip on the core technology. In several cases, we complemented our technology through acquisitions, and Larsen & Toubro's medical division was in Mysore. The products were perfectly complementing. They had one of the best teams here. So it was a natural fit. I can say it is providence. So core technologies is where we put. And Precol was a ventilator that was developed by the company, which was a single product company. And that fit perfectly into our portfolio.
Everyone's talking digital and technology, of course. How much of a role has that had on your industry, on your company? What kind of technologies are you perhaps looking at incorporating into Scandray over the next couple of years that you can give us a sense of?
We just have a couple of product gaps that has to be filled, and we will be a multi-product total solutions provider. The other opportunity we see is in telemedicine, in home care, and in technologies that will bring artificial intelligence and deep learning into medical practice. Basically, Skanray is going to be a primary and secondary healthcare multi-product solutions provider, which will enable a lot more people to get into the healthcare cover, and then scale the industry and the healthcare sector to a very large global level.
Thank you so much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, or like either of these companies, if you're interested in being featured here on Leaders of Tomorrow, here's how you do that. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. You can also get in touch with us on Facebook. Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now is how you get in touch. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.